Today I spoke with Annie, an author, a screenwriter, and somebody that likes to reflect, I think. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hello, and thank you for bearing with me while I start getting into a conversation, forgetting that we were supposed to be actually starting the podcast. So I know you're doing okay. I know you're in San Francisco. Thank you for joining me. So yeah, I will just quickly, because we've now actually started in that random way that I do. I will finish off what I was saying. When I started doing the podcast, and I had what did I want it to be like? You know, like I was saying, leading towards the book. Like, what do you want the book to achieve? What do you want it to be like? I like the idea that, do you know when you get on a train, plane, bus, whatever, and you're just, or in a cafe, like you're saying, and you're just sat next to a random stranger, and the two of you just start talking about something random, and then find yourself in this kind of vortex of a place where you just talk for hours.
And I love that. For me, that's the best part of traveling, for sure.
Exactly.
But even locally, it's a delight. It's like uncovering buried treasure.
Yeah, and so this is the reason. As I said, I rarely look at what people are bringing to the podcast, because I want that open conversation to flow, and which is, and like I said, it's similar to when you write a book. You kind of get an idea, and then you kind of thrash out how you want the book to come across, how you want it to be read, how you want somebody to interpret it, and by the time you finished, it was never the way that you intended it to be.
So true, and that's part of the writer's journey, and that's a part that fascinates me endlessly and brings me back to the computer every single day. And to tell you the truth, I've got these voices in my head with the characters, or my writer arguing with my editor inside my head, both of which are me. The idea that the conversation never stops. How do we make the book better? I was just teaching a little writing workshop at a local library just last week, and I put up on the whiteboard, the writer's job is to make readers care.
Yeah.
And that just kind of came to me as I was writing, because I'd never done a writer's workshop before. But this idea of caring, well, where does this come from? This comes from the work of the writer all through the process, whether you've successfully gotten through your first draft, or you're just kind of like working through the first chapter. All of that stuff is the digging, and you care as a writer because you know who your character is. You know them on so many levels, and it's like what you and I were just talking about, being open enough and asking questions, and really being curious on a head level and on a heart level to who is this person I'm sitting across the table from.
Yeah, it's like when you start developing a book and you start writing it, and plans or ideas you might have for a character don't unfold, because as you get to know them, as one line of the story develops, you find yourself like, actually, I don't want that to happen for them now, and you learn something about the character that was never originally in your mind.
Right. And I think the magic in part is, A, where does that thing you learned come from, and B, how do you transmit that magic into written words on a page so that someone in the future reading it is going to be affected by it? That's magic.
Yeah. It is, and that's because that's the great thing when we read stories and we're reading someone's book, is what the author sometimes plans isn't always how the person imagines the scenario or imagines the scene. And as you're reading down a page, a sentence that might stand out for one person won't necessarily stand out for another. So you can kind of have this general, it's like a tree. Everybody can see the tree, but we might all be focusing on our own branches. And you can kind of get that with a story, where what stands out for one is not what stands out for another.
Yeah, I think that's true of all art. It's what the observer or the reader or the audience member brings to the experience. And that comes with all of your life experience. I'm kind of a believer that you pick up a book at a time that something inside of you knows you're supposed to be reading this book. And hey, I'm from California, so it's a little woo-woo, but the idea that things resonate with you, things that other people created resonate with you, and there may be some kind of lesson that needs to be reinforced, something you need to let go of inside, and by taking a journey with a character through a fictional universe, you're able to cathartically let go of this thing that you haven't really been addressing. So, magic and magic, it is
because there is something that's almost sort of transformational that people can go down into when they're reading, because you can become so involved in what's happening and where the book is taking you, and get so involved in the characters, and in that moment that you're reading and the story is playing out in your mind on the words that you're seeing, you forget that somebody wrote this and it's just made up.
Yeah, it's just made up, and your reality in front of you, the room you're in, the table you're sitting at, wherever, vanishes.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
And that is the kind of the honor of writing, and the beauty of a good written book or a well written story. It is just how it takes you, it transcends you from the universe you're in to another one, and you're oblivious to that.
I know. It's amazing. I would be interested on a scientific level if someone's brain were wired in a certain way, and you could be reading brain waves. What actually changes from the time when I'm sipping a cup of tea and noticing I feel the warmth of the cup. It's all very visceral and it's in the moment. And then I pick up a book and I'm not even aware that I'm holding this anymore. What happens in your brain?
I would hazard a guess.
Okay.
Depending on, and I'm saying this as, because I have I'm a qualified hypnotherapist, so I have an understanding of how that kind of subconscious imagination works. But I don't. This is a theory just based on the question you answered. This is not an expert opinion. That the way that hypnosis works is because when you focus on the sound of my voice, which I would kind of lower and slow down, I start communicating to the subconscious, not the conscious mind. And what we really do is engage with that subconscious so that it will listen to instructions. And some people are more pliable than others, which is why some people are incredibly easy to hypnotize and some people are incredibly difficult to hypnotize. And when people talk about like the way that hypnosis works, it's that power of suggestion. It's more or just as much the power of expectation. So if you book an appointment to see a hypnotherapist, you build an expectation of what you expect to happen. And that's the process of hypnosis. So if you book an appointment 1 week from now, your subconscious for the next week is expecting me to hypnotize you. So some of the legwork, it's like the first draft is already done. And I then just kind of have to edit and complete. So what I imagine happens when people get into a book and they become so absorbed that busy part of the conscious mind is stilled, it's shut down, and you're much more in tune with the conscious and the subconscious together, are working much more closely together. Because like you mentioned perfectly, you're oblivious to the details on the cup, you're oblivious to the sofa behind you, you're oblivious to what's the very room you're in, and you're just focused on the book, and you become so immersed in that story. Whatever was happening in that story would probably be what would be represented at some level in brainwaves.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense. I appreciate your explanation. I don't know much about hypnosis, but I think I can report personally that the same thing happens for me as I'm writing, as when I'm reading something. It's that same submersion.
Yeah, and it's that kind of meditation where it's a single thought. So, because I remember reading probably 30 years ago that meditation was misunderstood. It's not about silencing the mind. It's about having single mind. So you're just focused on one task. And that could be surfing, that could be writing a book, that could be playing golf, it could be reading. It doesn't have to be sitting there silently being aware of your breath. It can just be whatever you're doing, as long as you're not distracted by something external or that monkey voice inside your head that just won't shut up and is relentlessly trying to get your attention. As long as that's silenced, it doesn't matter if you're just kneading the dough to bake bread. You're in a state of meditation. You go into a state of silence. And I think that's what happens where people go, which is why when people get engrossed in a book and they can just, before they know it, they started on Saturday and it's now, oh crikey, I need to go to work tomorrow. It's Sunday night.
Spent the whole weekend reading.
Yeah, and like anything, if you have a passion for it and you train it and you engage in that frequently, just like the hypnosis side, it develops the power of suggestion, where you're suggesting to your subconscious, this is where I'm going. And the best examples of this are when people create those little spaces where they have their own little reading space, where they take themselves away from the world to settle down, as the saying goes, to settle down to a good book. And you kind of you're subconsciously laying down the commands to your brain, to that subconscious, like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And if you repeat that pattern frequently enough, just like when people say like, oh, how do you get around writer's block, blah blah blah. Well, some people will tell you, just set a routine that this is every day or 3 times a week, whatever it is. Just make a start. Don't worry about it. Just write, and the words will either flow or they won't, and edit them out tomorrow if you don't like them. But what you must do is turn up to tell yourself, now I'm going to write. Yeah,
I kind of think about it as the ancient Greeks thought about the muses, that there were these, entities of some sort, gods and goddesses, but they brought inspiration to those of us who write, as well as the muses for art and music and science. And I've always thought to myself, okay, I can buy into that. You kind of get yourself into that mode, but you need to be at the keyboard. So I say, when the muse shows up, make sure she finds you at the keyboard.
Yeah. I like that.
And so you take it for granted, but you need to be in a place where you can be recording these things.
Yeah, true. You were saying earlier, you're grateful that this time you've got time to write your third novel. So what was the process with 1 and 2?
Well, the first novel, I started kind of on a dare from both of my grown-up children who are writers. Do you know about National Novel Writing Month?
I don't know. No, it's not.
Well, here we call it NaNoWriMo.
Okay.
And every November for 30 days, the challenge is to write 50,000 words in those 30 days. You could start at 0 with no idea, and just as you say, you show up every day and you write, and 30 days divided by 50,000 words is about 1,700 words a day.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you just write, and you can also log into a website that's very, very local, and you can see where other writers are going, and the daily chart of how many words collectively the group has been writing. It's not something that you share with anybody. It's just kind of a motivator. So my kids said, hey, Mom, why don't you do that? So I thought, okay, I didn't really necessarily have a pressing idea for a novel, but funny enough, a cousin of mine had sent me a link to a New York Times article within like a week before I got this challenge from my children. And it was about a young woman a kid who had committed suicide. And horrific as that was, what really grabbed my attention, aside from the age of the girl, was the fact that there seemed to be some online harassment that led to it, and that police were investigating, particularly a Facebook post on the girl's memorial page where someone had said, yeah, she died, but I don't really give a damn, with more colorful language than that. And that was all reported in the paper. And I thought, excuse me, how could this person who posted this been so heartless? What made her think, of all places on someone's memorial page, to be so blatantly cruel? And so there were no answers for me, because the report stopped and I couldn't dig any further. So I decided to come up with a way to answer my own questions. And that was, what if the dead girl's story wasn't over? What if the girl who had continued to harass her after death had a story of her own? What was going on there? All those questions. What made her think this was an okay thing to do? And so I started writing it in November of 2013. And I started with 5 first-person narratives. It was so unwieldy, David. It was like, what am I doing? I had never written a lengthy piece of fiction before. I'd written nonfiction books, but this is very different. I wrote myself into corners right and left. I continued and then parked it. I wrote a couple of other nonfiction books that were published after that or in between. Then in 2017, I picked it up again and started working with an editor. I got a roadmap. I started thinking, okay. And then some other things happened. When the pandemic hit, I dusted it off again and I said, okay, it's been 7 years. If I'm ever going to finish this, I need to finish it. And so I did. And it's called The Little Things That Kill. And the subtitle is A Teen Afterlife Apology Tour.
Okay.
That's a title I love. And that's how it started, from the New York Times article and the police investigation of the Facebook post. And that was it.
And did you say that took place in 2013?
The suicide?
Yeah. Or the article, at least.
The article, yeah, I got it in 2013.
Yeah, because it's interesting, isn't it, that those early days of the internet were kind of like almost like the Wild West. And I mean, it still goes on a little bit today. Mm-hmm. But yeah, but it's I'm never quite sure what side of the fence I sit on, really. You know, because I'm on one hand, what on earth, like, why would you do that? But then I'm like, I know why they do it, because they want a reaction.
Yeah, and it was a kid. It was a kid who did it, who was she was, in fact, involved in the social circle of the dead girl.
Yeah, and she just wants a reaction. It's as simple as that. But I'm not sure that there should be a consequence to it either.
Turns out there wasn't. No legal consequence. But for me, it stuck with me because I work with kids, and I'm interested in character development and
but that's what I mean. I think there's a societal consequence, because people, like everyone, you know, you and I would be looking at them like that's just one of the most abhorrent things you could do. But I don't think there should be a legal.
No, there wasn't. And so I was fascinated with the challenge of creating a character who at first hit seems pretty loathsome.
Yeah.
And yet she's human. And so what is underneath the bravado and the attack mode?
Yeah.
What makes her human, so that the character is three-dimensional and that the reader has empathy for her.
Yeah, it's hard though, isn't it? Because You know, people say horrible things about people all the time, and it's a really difficult one, because regardless of what you may or may not think of people, they are somebody's son, somebody's daughter, possibly husband, wife, grandfather, grandmother, whatever. You know, in their social circles, they're well respected and well loved. But because you have a, you know, like I said, it's writing something on somebody's sort of memorial wall, that's just, it's, you know, but it comes down to that old cliche, when you wouldn't turn up at the funeral and do it, and that's why you do it online, because you can hide behind the keyboard. But
so it's an interesting process for me as a writer to create this character and to delve into her backstory, and the dead girl as well. She was no angel. And so, literally. And so the idea that there are stories to be told, and I was in a position to make something up. And I found it satisfying as a writer. The book just got a starred review on Kirkus Reviews, which I understand is pretty unusual, especially for an independently published book. And so,
well, congratulations.
Thank you. It's very gratifying when you work for 10 years on and off on something. It meant a lot to me to delve so deeply into this idea. There are ancillary characters like the dead girl's father, and there's a lot of loss, and it's heavy. It's a heavy thing. My own dad died suddenly when I was 15, and so there was this idea of grief, of redemption, of forgiveness, of letting go, of moving on. All of that stuff was a journey that I, as the author, had to take. And what's especially gratifying is when people on Goodreads say, "Wow, you know, this book meant a lot to me," and that's, you know, the writer's job, make people care.
Yeah,
not in a manipulative way, but in an authentic way.
Did you find the 15-year-old you resurfacing to say her piece?
Oh yeah, for sure. Even though, you know, it was a reverse. I wrote about a grieving dad and the loss of his daughter.
Yeah.
My experience was a 15-year-old grieving daughter for the loss of her dad. And in some ways it was interesting to take a parent's point of view, when at that time, obviously, I couldn't take the point of view of my mom, who was left alone. It was, you know, how do you lose a partner? But the parent loss was like, and the guilt, you know, that my character's thinking, why wasn't I there when she needed me? And that's really hard for him to forgive himself. So, yeah, my 15-year-old self resurfaced in new and different ways, for sure.
Did any of that surprise you?
I cried a lot during the writing, but I whenever I write a scene that's either very funny or scary or deep in a sad way, if I'm not reacting emotionally while I'm writing the words, I'm not doing my job. It needs to touch me first before I can be an authentic documentarian of the scene and the character and the emotions.
At any point did you, when it kind of there's a line, isn't there, where, you know, like you were saying earlier, that some people read something in a book, read your book, and it will resonate with them. Was there ever a moment where something, it didn't have to be from when you were 15, from the loss of your own father, but it resonated with you, and you're like, oh, am I writing this for them, or am I writing this for me?
I think that we're always writing for ourselves on some level.
Yeah.
The stories we choose, the characters, the situations we put them in, excuse me, we're working something out.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of that. So
I agree. I think we're often working something out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to sustain your interest in what you're writing for so long that if it's not some kind of personal connection, then there's lots of things I would choose not to write about because I don't really care.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's because sometimes when you did you find yourself when you were writing something being worried what somebody might think, or like, oh, I don't know if I should explore this?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. That's the beauty of being an indie author. I don't have a big publishing company over me telling me anything about pull it back a little bit, or no, you don't want to discuss this, or that's a little bit too raw. You might offend some people. No, none of it. So this is the cover of that book. Mm-hmm. I've got it. It's upside down. It's backwards, isn't it?
Yeah, that's okay.
Do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is the dead girl in the middle of a Ouija board.
Yep.
And this is one of her other friends who is talented in that way, and so this is the bridge kind of between both worlds.
Okay, I like that concept.
Yeah, because dead girl is desperate to communicate with the living because she has no memory of what happened to her, and she's got 30 days to figure it out so she can pass the evaluation in this otherworldly space where she is. Otherwise, she will not be moving on, even though she does not know what that means. So if she has no memory of her last day, she has to go back to Earth to figure out if anyone else knows. And this girl's hand on the cover is her best friend, who happens to be a witch who can kind of commune with the other world. So the idea of crossing the line, no, I didn't have to worry about that. I'll share a little story with you. I wrote and published and illustrated my first book when I was 20 years old. And it was with a big New York publishing house. And I was doing the illustrations, and there were some, there were a lineup of people, and the book is called People Are Like Lollipops. And essentially, this very simple picture book is that lollipops come in different colors, people come in different colors. Lollipops come from different places, people come from different places. Lollipops come in different sizes and shapes, and so do people. Yeah. So for the people page, opposite the lollipops and all different shapes, I had people in bathing suits so that you could see their body type. And one of the figures that I drew was a young woman, and it showed a little cleavage where her breasts, in a bathing suit. And I remember that the marketing team or somebody in this high up publishing company said, you got to erase the line with the cleavage. We cannot show that. Yeah. And I went, oh, okay. So I was 20 years old. This is my first book contrast. And I said, yes, sir. Sure. I don't worry about this stuff anymore.
No, like you say, that's the beauty of being an independent, isn't it? You can
write the book you want to write.
Yeah, and the way you want to write it is. So, where was childhood for you?
I was a very imaginative child. I'm the youngest of three. I have two older brothers, and they had different priorities, sports, things like that. I like to go off by myself and kind of daydream. Yeah. I like to draw. I love to write, and I also I got into music as a young child, and I could sing very well, and I just used to kind of like transport myself into roles of Broadway stars and sing the lyrics out and really get into it. I've always had a lot of ways to express myself creatively, thank goodness. I was a really good student. I was one of the theater kids. I'd say up until the time my dad dropped dead of a heart attack, I was having a pretty good time.
Yeah.
Then I got very introspective, and again, the means of creative expression at my fingertips helped me so much to process all of that. Processing obviously still this many decades later in novels that I write, dealing with sudden loss and feeling helpless not to be able to stop terrible things from happening. So, yeah.
Where was it? Where did you grow up?
In New York.
In New York?
Yes.
Okay. And
then I escaped to the West Coast.
Escaped.
Good move. It's a good move.
Yeah. Well, it's two contrasting places, isn't it? It's
Yes. One seems much more traditional in many ways, and I've never been a traditional kind of person. So this West Coast lifestyle suit me a lot better.
Yeah. Cool. And how old were you when you left New York?
Well, I left metropolitan New York to go to college when I was 18, and that was then I moved. I went to college in upstate New York. I went to Cornell University, and upstate New York was absolutely gorgeous. So I kind of discovered that I love the natural world. This is a part of New York State that was carved out by glaciers. And so there are gorges and waterfalls and conifer forests. And I got a dog while I was still an undergraduate, which you were not supposed to do, but I did that anyway. So I would go hiking with my dog through the forests, waterfalls, in between classes, and go, oh my goodness, okay, I need to always be in a place with easy access to beautiful, beautiful nature. And here it is, as I said, this many years later, I still go hiking with my dog in Northern California daily. And it's kind of, it's a way to get away from the keyboard and kind of resettle, but still the character voices are still in my head as I'm working on another book. As I said, that writing process never stops, but sometimes catching light through the forest and going, and just stopping and taking a photograph of something really, really small, like a spider web or a tiny, tiny wildflower. That brings me back.
What sort of dog do you have?
I have a border collie.
Oh, nice. Yeah. What's her name?
Super smart. Her name is Gracie.
Gracie. Nice.
Gracie the Dog. And she's a great trail dog, which is fabulous. And the dog that I got when I was in undergraduate college was also a border collie mix, black and white dog. Her name was Medea, which is a much heavier.
Yeah. So if you had, because I've had a border collie.
They're great. They're scary smart. Oh my goodness, scary smart.
Oh yeah. I have a different dog now called Molly, but the dog before that was a border collie, a brown and white one called Toby. And just an amazing dog there. That was my first border collie, and completely just changed everything. Every perception I had on a border collie, he smashed them, because he, like you say, it's not just that he was intelligent, because they are just incredibly intelligent, but they really do want to know what you're doing. I have a Staffordshire Bull Terrier at the moment, Molly. She's getting on in years, bless her. And we sometimes call her Velcro because she'll kind of stick to me. But I wouldn't. She likes my company, but I don't think she cares what I'm doing.
I see the distinction. Yes, absolutely. Gracie just keeps her eyes on me.
Yeah, that's it. It's what are you doing?
Yes, what are you doing?
And can I do it as well? Can I be part of that?
Yes. So if I'm going up in the garden, she sees me out, I would take gardening shears and a basket with me, and she's like, I'm coming. But also when I'm in the kitchen, you mentioned bread making earlier.
Yeah.
I make bread. And so I'll be in the kitchen, and we have a door between the living room and the kitchen. I'll be at the counter kneading bread, and Gracie's in her dog bed like this. And she just watching me. She's watching me. She knows she can't help me make bread, but she just wants to know where I am all the time. And am I okay? And do I need anything?
Yeah. It's like they want to be a 24/7 sort of carer. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, how can I serve you? How can I get involved? What is it you're doing?
I know. Yes. What do you need? Do you need a hug? Can I snuggle with you?
Yeah.
What do you need? But we have lots of open space here. It's called fire roads because we live in a very hilly place, and if God forbid there was ever any wildfires here, there's access from many neighborhoods up into the hills, and so there are roads, and the fire roads are broad trails that go in gorgeous places,
Yeah.
and you can have views of all of San Francisco, and they're amazing. The rule for dogs on the fire roads is they can be off leash.
Okay.
And you could go for miles and miles walking with your dog off leash. And so Gracie doesn't stick by me the same way she does at home. She will go off, but she probably won't go more than like 50 or 100 feet away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she'll keep looking back. Are you coming? Annie, are you there? It's like, but she won't come back to me unless I whistle. If I whistle for her, she's back in a second.
Yeah. And it's weird, isn't it? Because I used to get a sense with Toby that he was almost, not quite, but almost supervising, even if he wasn't sure what I was doing. He's like, I'll come along just in case you need some input.
I love that. You don't want to go alone.
Yeah, that's it.
You need me. You need me.
Yeah. You might not need me, but it's better that if you do need me, I'm there for you.
I'm there for you. That's how lovely is that? Best friend in the world. I'm there for you.
Yeah. They are, aren't they? They're remarkable animals, dogs. They are just, and if when you build that relationship with, if you get a dog and you get that relationship with them, it's just a wonderful experience.
So for that reason, and my great love and appreciation for dogs, I always put dogs in my books. Ah. Someone's got a dog, and the dog has so much empathy and sensitivity to what's going on.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. They do. So I think we covered the first book. What was the second book?
Oh, the second book. I love the second book. It just came out in March. It's called Leeta Simtar, A Life on Two Planets. And I can hold this up because this is a gorgeous cover. I love this cover.
Yep.
Yeah. And if I turn it upside down, there's Leeta, but this is the planet she's come from.
Yeah.
And this is where she ends up. This is Northern California. Notice the redwood trees.
Oh, I see.
And that, those of us who may not know our geography, the mountain in the background is Mount Shasta, which is in Northern California.
Okay.
And the center thing is, this is her escape pod coming towards Earth. So we kind of designed this like a graphic novel because one of the main characters is an aspiring graphic novelist. So the idea was kind of like, maybe we could attract some attention in that way. It's definitely what we call a road trip. And Leeta she leaves her home planet in search of home. That's kind of it. She's so much an outsider. She's an interspecies hybrid, a one of a kind on her planet, and she always feels like an outsider. It's not just the way she looks. She's 6.5 feet tall, and everybody else is barely 5 feet tall on this planet. So she stands out in many ways, but her behavior, she's just not buttoned up the way everybody else there is. They lead with logic and kind of Zen-like acceptance of things, and Leeta, she feels the feels all the time. She's upset with something, she rages at it. If she's touched by something, she will cry. She laughs uproariously. People look at her like she's nuts, though they say that we accept everyone here. They really don't. And so she leaves her home planet in search of home, and she travels 40 light years to do it, and she ends up at a place, I won't tell you where, but might there be some place in the universe where people are irrational and emotional and unpredictable? And will she find her own place there? Tune in, folks.
Yeah. I don't think there's I think the whole of planet Earth would fit that description, wouldn't they?
No. Humans, absolutely not. No. Anyway, there's she loves dogs. She's never met a dog before, and she falls in love with a dog. And the dog falls in love with her.
Ah. And what dog is it in the story?
The dog is a yellow lab.
Okay.
Labrador Retriever, yeah. and his name is Weezin, which is the bright tail star on Canis Major, which is the constellation that is the big dog.
Okay, clever.
Okay.
Like that.
So it's a yellow star on the tail of this constellation. So the owner calls the dog Weezin because it's a yellow dog and a yellow star, and like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's clever. That's clever, though.
Thank you.
How, like, with the first one, you were kind of inspired because of a story you read.
Yeah.
What brought this one kind of to the pen, so to speak?
I really wish I could pinpoint it. I started working on this book, mostly the world building part of it, because the planet Fiore is where it is. It revolves around a red dwarf star, and it is 40 light years away from Earth. I started kind of world building, thinking about the history, the culture, the geography of this place. During one of the times I was parking the little things that kill because it was too much to write. So I thought, okay, well, I got another idea. So maybe, I've never written science fiction. I don't particularly read science fiction, but it seemed to me that if there was ever an outsider who actually needed to leave home to find home, it would be probably some kind of extraterrestrial who came to Earth. So it was that construct. It wasn't an idea of writing of science fiction. I didn't go about that, but I went about the idea of what is the most outsiderish you could feel. If you were one of a kind on a planet, you'd feel really out of it. And yet this longing for home, which is so deep in all humans, that feeling of acceptance and belonging, it drives us. And so I thought, okay, what's the most extreme thing I could think of? Oh my goodness, how about a one-of-a-kind interspecies hybrid who's living on a planet where nobody's like her? And she is driven, literally driven by her emotions to find out what is her real birth history, and how can she find people like herself so she can fulfill that human destiny of being part of a tribe.
When you're writing, do you find you have the story all planned out, or does it just unravel itself as you go along? Part way. I didn't with The Little Things That Kill, which is why it took me 10 years to write it. Mm-hmm. I equate that to, I think I'll build a house. I know what houses look like. I've seen them my whole life. I'll just build a house, and I don't have one clue how to go about building a house. But let's see, I'll put a wall here, and I forgot the window. Okay, I'm going to cut a window out here. Oh, the wall collapses. Okay, well, maybe it's just like, it took a lot of time, David. A lot of I never think it's wasted time, but I would never go without a plan again. Do I know every single thing that's going to happen in Leeta Simtar? I did not. It unfolded as I got to know the characters better. But I think it's probably part of each way to do it. Did I plan it? Let it flow, a little of each, rather than just like it'll write itself. Not for me. Maybe it does for other people. Going back before you wrote the first book, before 2013.
Yes.
Were you trying to write a book before that just never happened?
I was writing screenplays.
Okay. Yeah. So you've always had that writing process going on then?
Yes. I spent a lot of time writing screenplays, none of which ever got made into anything. But I learned a lot about good storytelling techniques and how to write compelling dialogue. Yes. I also spent a lot of time writing interactive scripts for CD-ROM games.
Okay.
And a lot of those did see the light of day. And they were mostly for children.
Yeah.
And that was great, great fun. So, yeah, I've always kind of made my living as a writer one way or another. And then there were 10 nonfiction books that I wrote, most of them advice books for teenagers.
Okay.
But the fiction writing on this scale, this is relatively new, and it came to me rather much later in life when I thought, I've always so admired a wonderful novel. I've got an idea here about a dead girl. Why not? And I've got 30 days to write the first 50,000 words. Let's see if I can do it.
Do any of the kind of advice books for teenagers, did any of that cross over into like metaphors or examples?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that because I've spent the last 25 years answering email from teenagers from around the world on my website, kind of like what you guys call an agony aunt.
Yeah.
Yes, I started doing that in 1997 on a teen website that I created. And the email still comes in, amazingly enough. I feel like, even though I'm a mom and went through, being a mom of two teenagers, I feel like these emails kept me in the trenches. Yeah. And yes, absolutely allowed me to be able to write teenage voices very authentically and to tap into things that are important to them, so that I could shine a light on those in characters, obstacles, relationship muck, and that kind of stuff, and insecurities and bravado and all the things that adolescents tend to do when they are feeling stressed. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Would you say then, because obviously I think you said you started that in 1997, so
yes.
you're nearly.
Been a while.
Well, it's that 28 years. Is that right? 28 years.
Good. 28 years.
That was lucky. My maths isn't normally that on point.
It was actually June of 1997, so yeah, 28 years.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you.
There's two questions I have. One is, were there or is there still a kind of a common theme that teenagers kind of just get caught up in needing advice? And if there is one of the issues the way they look at the problem?
Well, yes, because they're limited in their life experience, and so they're myopic. And what's happening right now is the most important thing ever. Yeah. But to answer the first question, if I were to boil down, and I've answered over 70,000 email questions in the last 28 years, and that includes visits to schools and live events where the kids anonymously write something and fold up a piece of paper and pass it forward. Yeah, 70,000 emails. If I were to boil all of those down to one question,
and not necessarily, but is there like a common theme?
Yeah, well, here's the common thing. There's confusion about the way other people respond to me as the teenager. It's like, why is my friend not acting like a friend? Yeah. In other words, this person I trusted and felt bonded with, they've turned on me. What did I do wrong? And how can I get them back in my life the way it was? How can I turn back the clock? I'm going crazy. This is the worst thing that's ever happened. And will I ever be happy again? Yeah.
I used to say that I think being a teenager, in some respects, and context is always important, but largely because it's just that stage of your life, is the worst time in your life. And because you're in this difficult position where you're trying to be a grown-up, independent person. At the same time, you have no idea of who you want to be and how you discover who you want to be. But you want to be kind of the cool. You want it, and it's this constant sort of hypocrisies that. You want to be an abled, independent, cool kid that doesn't need anyone, whilst also being part of the group.
Exactly, it's schizophrenic. You've nailed it.
You want to kind of, it's that there's all these things going on, and you're trying to be this independent, cool, trendy person, and you want to be accepted by everybody. And the problem is you don't even know what you want or who you want to be, and you don't realise that adults don't have any of that courage that you're seeking either.
It's true, but at some point in your life, hopefully, you care less what other people think.
Yeah, but that's
the key.
It is, and what is very difficult to explain to teenagers is that there tends, and not exclusively, but there tends to be two things that make adults not care what happens to them. Either some kind of life-altering event where they just, do you know what, screw it, I can't be bothered to care anymore. Or they just get older and wiser and realise it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So for the teenagers that I write about, that is often the dichotomy. It's like you want to be part of the group, and that means conformity.
Yeah.
But the last thing you want is to be like your parents or your birth family. So at home, you're as different as you can be. And at school with your social group, the last thing you want to do is be different. And it takes a great amount of courage and self-assuredness to walk into a group of your peers and just be who you are.
And the other thing I think that makes it incredibly difficult when you're a teenager is one of the things you discover as an adult, that school is incredibly important as part of your informative years, because it's where you're going to have those first crushes, the idealize of, you get idols, pop stars, rock stars, film stars, sports stars, whatever. It's kind of when that starts to develop. But so it's such an informative time in your life. But what you won't know is that the minute you leave school, you won't see 90% of those people again.
True.
But they are currently the only echo chamber and feedback loop you have, and apparently that's all that matters in the world.
And they may be your role models too, for better or for worse.
Yeah,
I want to be
absolutely.
like the most popular kid. I have to wear my hair this way. I have to dress like this, talk like this. I have to pretend that I like the things that they like, and laugh at the jokes that I don't think are funny, or target the people that they say I ought to target. Because that person they're targeting is an outsider, and I better wash my own back. I mean, it's really hard.
It is, and you can't explain to a teenager that in a few years, especially if you don't go to college, but even if you do, it doesn't matter. But your potential next best friend will be at work, and I don't mean best friend socially, but lots of people, if they go to a workplace, have kind of their work buddy, the one they hang out with.
Yeah.
And that person might be 30 years older than you. And I always remember that hit me once. I was working somewhere, and there was a guy called John Jeffries, and he was 30 years my seniors, and we were like we were just like two little boys together. We just... but you would never got me to understand it. Like, what was I was 20, and there was about 35 years between us, and we were thick as thieves.
You clicked with him. So that's the idea. It's like, I think whatever standard a lot of adolescents use to define what a friend is and who will be the right friend for them is so different.
Yeah.
It's so different than the way adults choose.
Just lastly, my last two questions. Where can people find you?
AnnieFox.com is probably the easiest, most direct way to find me, and everything that I do is up there.
So it's AnnieFox.com. I'll make sure that's in the description. And lastly, my random question. Using your imagination, I want you to think about a time machine. The time machine is a car. I want to know what car you're going to pick as your time machine, where you're going to go, and what's going to be playing on the radio.
Jesus. I don't know much about cars.
It could be anything.
Okay, sure. I would love to ride in a hot air balloon. Okay.
Cool.
So I'll take a hot air balloon with a radio, of course, or I've got my playlist.
Whichever.
And
Yeah.
I will be. Yeah, and I will be on my way to Italy, and I will be listening to. I'm not throwing away my shot from Hamilton. I will not throw away my shot. If you don't know that, I could sing you a few bars, but yeah, that one. Do not throw away your shot.
And what period of time in Italy?
Oh, am I going? Oh, you said it was a time machine, right? Yeah. Oh, I don't want to go to medieval. Oh no,
it can be present day. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I would love probably go to. All right, then I'm going to take my hot air balloon to Paris during the time the Impressionists were exhibiting for the first time. Yes, and I would like to go into Monet or Manet's studio, see what Degas is up to, and just maybe take some art lessons.
That would be good, actually. Being at Monet. That would be good. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, and good luck with the books, and thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for this lovely conversation. I appreciate your thought-provoking questions. It really felt like we should meet up for tea sometime.
Exactly as we described it in the email. We pulled it off perfectly.
We did. So you have a nice day, David.
And you, take care. And there you go. That was Annie. And the books can be found from anniefox.com. But most of all, remember what we said about collie dogs, border collies. Amazing dogs. If you haven't had one and you're looking for a dog, I highly, if you're able to take care of them, I highly recommend them. If you have a border collie, you know exactly what Annie and I are talking about. Great dogs, an amazing dog. And that was that episode. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for the support. And as always, wherever you're from, whatever you believe, please do take care and be blessed. Thank you.